You're listening to a Rock Candy podcast.
Hey, I'm Andrew.
And I'm John.
Our show, Magnified Pod, is the only podcast that discusses culture, religion, politics, and deep dives into the discographies of the bands that shaped a generation of 90s youth group kids.
We share our thoughts on the Christian bookstore alternate universe scene we grew up in, our changing religious views, and the alternative music that formed us, going through albums track by track.
We've also interviewed band members, producers, filmmakers, and artists, and had fascinating, profound, and silly conversations along the way.
Check out Magnified Pod on the Rock Candy Podcast Network and wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome to the Eleventyseven podcast.
Hi everybody, Matt here. Welcome to this week's episode of Eleventyseven. Gosh, it is a good one, and I'm so glad that you are here for it. On this week's episode, I get to sit down with the one and only Jordan Pundik from the band New Found Glory. Not only a huge influence on my band and all of my fellow band members, but also on the pop punk culture and scene itself. I get to pick his brain about the creative process, what songwriting looks like within the machine of New Found Glory, how the 2020 COVID pandemic has affected their band, and the benefits of therapy. We even get to reminisce about some of the time we spent in Japan playing the Punk Spring Festival. So I do not want you to miss this episode. It is really, really fun. And I have to tell you, I don't know if I've met a kinder, warmer, nicer person to hang out with via the internet than Jordan. So if you're interested in some good vibes and a little bit of insight into some things that might help you on your creative process or in your journey as an artist, as a band member, then you're going to want to buckle up for this one because there is some really great choice nugs of sage wisdom from a scene and industry veteran. Huge hugs and high fives to everybody over at the Eleventyseven Facebook group. You big bunch of beautiful unicorns. I love you. I'm thinking about you. And I'm doing my best via the medium of telekinesis to send you the most unicorn magic and sparkles that I possibly can. A huge thanks as well to everybody who is hitting that follow button on the Eleventyseven Spotify account and checking out our brand new EP Beta Mosh on that platform. Every time that you hit a heart or a follow button or add us to your playlists, you really do help to move the needle on everything happening here at the Rock Candy Recording Studios. And if you're looking for more shows like this one, more content like this, head on over to rockcandyrecordings.com and check out some of the fellow creators that we have because there's some amazing shows on this network and I want to make sure that you don't miss out on them. One last quick reminder just before we get into today's episode that there's a lot of art that has been created during the 2020 pandemic and even heading into 2021. The studios have been super busy with people sending us songs, tracks, albums that they have worked on during the pandemic and they're looking for that last little bit of sheen or a great mix or a great mastering job. And we are absolutely here for it. We love working with independent artists, helping them to level up their sound and to make some really great next moves in their career. We talk about this process with many different artists across multiple genres on this podcast all the time, and helping people put the best magic that they can into the universe is something that we're very passionate about here. So if that is you, if you're working on songs, if you have a whole smattering of demos, if you're looking to do some singles, if you're looking to do a record or an EP, hit us up. We would love to talk to you about it. We would love to help point you in the right direction to help you get what you need to get out of your soul, out of your inner being, and into the real world where the rest of us can all enjoy it. So if this sounds like it fits what you're looking for, head on over to rockcandyrecordings.com, drop us a line, and let's talk about your next steps. If you're enjoying these podcast episodes, but you are flat ass broke, go ahead and check out the links in the show notes. Check out our songs on Spotify and also get to the latest release from New Found Glory right there in the show notes. Thank you all so much for the ways in which you support and send good vibes to everything we're doing here at Rock Candy with Eleventyseven. We have some of the absolute best fans and friends and family that any group of creators or bands could possibly ask for. And this morning, I'm just feeling hella grateful for all of it. So from everybody here at Rock Candy, thank you so much for your time, for your ears, for those car rides that you give us to and from work, picking your kids up. To the folks that put on our podcast while you're cleaning the kitchen or doing some menial task, thank you for letting us be your background noise. I hope that you have amazing things headed for you right now this weekend, and I hope that this podcast episode is one of those things. So without further ado, here is my conversation with the lovely Jordan Pundik of New Found Glory.
What's up, Matt?
How are you, man?
I'm good. How you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. It is so nice to see your smile today.
Hey, it's nice to actually talk to somebody that's not like one of my children or like my wife or I don't know. What's up, man?
Oh man. Yeah, so I just wanted to let you know, like normally for the show, we just kind of dig right into it. We don't do I'll do all the introductions on the bookends and everything. So we just kind of like start out doing our thing. So
okay.
Yeah. So tell me about your day so far. You seem to have a happy respite here.
Well, I will tell you why. I am alone in my house right now. Kids are gone doing things, and it's just my dog and I. But you know what? I have to wait for an appliance guy right now. So he's coming. He's coming like an hour.
What's broken?
Because my dryer's broken.
Oh no.
So that's what I'm doing. I'm waiting for an appliance guy.
What? There's no telling what actually broke your dryer. You have a kid.
Yeah.
Like what ended up in the two kids.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
It just doesn't spin anymore. I don't know what happens. You know, you're like doing something, and then all of a sudden it's like, no, it doesn't work anymore. So.
Oh man, I love that. I always feel like I get caught in these like weird holding patterns. Like if we have to have an appliance guy or somebody come work on the house or do something like that, I always feel like I'm just in this constant like holding pattern. I don't want them to show up and me like be in the studio and everything's super loud and nobody can get my attention and like all this stuff. So I just end up pacing around the house, like wondering what to do with myself.
Yeah. Do you do it for like the hour right before they're supposed to come?
Oh yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. And they always show up like after I've given up on them entirely, that's when they decide to show up. So,
kids, this is what happens when you like are adulting. And I don't feel like an adult. I feel like a child still. So, and I'm like, I have to make a phone call and my heart starts racing like 1,000 miles an hour.
What's the best part about, or I should ask, like, what are the things that make you feel most childlike? Is it that like trying to get your shit together, be responsible, do all the adult things that everybody else is doing, or?
It's more like when I hang out with some of my friends that are, doing, that are in similar like situations, like married, have younger kids, but for some reason, and we're like the same age group, late 30s, early 40s, and it feels like they're so much older than I am, like my friend Brad and Janelle, for example. My friend Brad's a doctor and my friend Janelle is a lawyer, so like power couple. And I'm just like, you guys want to talk about the next show that's popping up on Netflix? I don't know. Like they just, which actually Janelle is pretty like knowledgeable, and she loves like her TV shows. But anyways, I don't know what it is. They just feel like they're just so much older than I am, like it feels. I always feel like I'm just like a kid all the time.
Yeah. No, I absolutely relate to that. I feel like there's a lot of people kind of like in our situation that ended up in this weird kind of like pop punk bubble, and in as much like also became cursed with this sort of like Arrested Development where like because our lives never looked like anybody else's, like that we're just always kind of second guessing what we're doing. I don't know if that, maybe I'm projecting a lot, but that's like it's always in my head. I'm just like, what the fuck just happened? Like should I have done something different with my life? How did I end up here?
Yeah.
So.
And it's true because like, I mean, for me, I like kind of grew up like in the band, I didn't like, I went to a semester of college, and that's like where you do like a lot of your like self-searching and growing and stuff.
Yes.
And I went straight from high school and I did a semester of college, but the band was like doing local shows a lot, in South Florida. And during that time, and I was like, and then we got like 3 days with Real Big Fish. And I was like, I quit school. I'm going to Melbourne, Florida to open for Real Big Fish.
Melbourne, Florida. I love that.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. That's awesome. So maybe we've been on like slightly similar paths. Like I did 2 semesters of college, and then like we ended up with like a deal with Sony, but it was no big thing. Really small potatoes compared to like all the NFG stuff that happened. But I do find myself like oddly more prepared to like deal with relational things or like really crazy shit that happens in life. I feel like more than some of my friends who weren't in bands. Like something weird will happen like with their life or their family, and I'm like, yeah, but you guys have no idea what it's like to be on tour. For like years at a time, and like have to deal with all of that shit and all of the interpersonal dynamics in it. Like this is so small potatoes. Everything's going to be fine.
Yeah, for sure.
Kind of a thing. Not to minimize like everybody else's problems. It just sometimes I find it empowering, I think. Yeah.
Oh, for sure.
So tell me what COVID has looked like for you guys?
It's been a lot of just, well, the thing that sucks the most is like the homeschool stuff. Cause like all of a sudden, you know, I'm thrown into being a teacher. I don't know. Do you have kids or no?
I don't.
Okay. So I always feel weird like talking about my kids to people that don't have kids because they're like, I don't give a shit, you know, like who cares?
No, it's cool. My wife works for DSS, and so like our lives are kind of revolve around kids, but we just don't have any of our own. Yeah,
that's cool. So it's been a lot of homeschool, and that's been like the hardest thing out of all of it because I have a newfound appreciation for teachers, you know, because like and not that I was not that like I have this like, oh, I need to send my kids off because I need my quiet time and I need alone time, and the teachers they're babysitters basically for free. It's not like, I know a lot of people feel that way, but I never felt that way. I was just so used to my kids just going to school, you know, and like just having that.
Yes.
And then now all of a sudden I have to be a teacher where like I graduated high school with consumer math. Like I never even made it to pre-algebra. So like I'm trying to like do fractions with my 10-year-old and I'm like, I don't know how to do this, you know? Like, so.
I feel like you actually kind of dodged a bullet. I was absolutely awful at math, at all things math. I think the only reason I passed was because I had a teacher that took pity on me.
I think that was the same for me.
Yeah. But I think we might be onto something, maybe like a cool tribute album in the works called A Newfound Appreciation.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's a good idea.
Supporting the teachers.
Got to think of new stuff all the time, so...
That's it. That's awesome.
It's all about my third grade teacher, Miss Duncan.
Oh, tell me about her.
She was my favorite probably out of all of my schooling. She was just like, I don't know. I can't explain it. She just was really awesome.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yes. I love that. I feel like I wish that on everybody. I feel like having a teacher that is like just very specifically prepared to deal with your bullshit. You know what I mean? Like their life has kind of led them to that moment where they meet you and it's like, I know how to like help this child.
Yeah.
Those are awesome experiences. So big love to Kelly Orr for connecting us. Am I correct in saying that you guys like work in the same shop or next to each other or with each other sometimes?
Yeah. So I had a shop. So I opened it. I had tattooed Kelly like many years ago, like when I was first starting out.
Yeah.
And he has like crazy crap all over his body.
Oh yeah. Nuts.
So he emailed me and he was like, "Hey man, I tattoo also." And I'm like, "Yeah, okay, cool." And because I didn't know his like stuff yet, you know?
Yeah.
And then so he came in and we were talking and stuff. And then through that tattoo appointment, then we just started interacting more like on social media and then through email and stuff. And then I went to look at his stuff one day and I was like, oh shit.
Yeah.
He's like legit.
He's hella talented. Yes.
He's got like almost 200,000 followers on Instagram and all that stuff. And I'm just like, wow, you know, like I love his style of tattooing and he's really like come into his like style, you know, and that's what people love about him. And I love it too. He tattooed my hands and some other stuff. So, and then so I had a shop in San Diego that I worked on opening, and then I got it open. And Kelly was going to come tattoo at my shop in San Diego like a couple of days a week.
Yeah.
And then some thugs came in and threatened me, and I had to close the shop. So when that happened,
oh shit,
long story, not enough time.
Okay.
But really, it was really crappy. So then when that happened, he was like, dude, just like do your appointments at my place. And so that's kind of where I've been doing stuff like on and off, you know, between touring and now that I've been home like a little more. So
yeah. Is this a recurring theme in your life? Do thugs happen often for you?
No. That was like the first experience I ever had with that. It was really, I've never in my life I would have thought something like that. It was like a movie scene. Like literally like a guy standing in front of the door to go in and outside, standing outside blocking the door. And then these dudes came in with like knives and stuff. And just
God.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
And I'm thinking like, we're in San Diego. There's like literally a shop next, like there's a shop, then another shop, but for some reason, I don't know what it was, but I mean, they were a shop that's been there a long time. And I was just a little like it was just me and I was going to have Kelly there sometimes, but that was pretty much it. It was appointments only. Like I was no threat to them, but for whatever reason. Yeah. Well,
I'm sorry to hear about that, man. That sounds that's awful.
Yeah, it was awful at the time, but looking back now, I'm like, man, I'm so glad I didn't I'm so glad I don't have that responsibility, you know, of like owning something like that and just being able to just come and go as I please, go on tour, not worry about things, you know what I mean?
Yeah. For For sure. Well, that was something that I wanted to talk to you about. I know that COVID has looked a little bit weird for everybody. Have there been any specific pivots that you feel like you and the NFG guys have made to try to retain some band normalcy?
Yeah, I mean, besides doing the typical live stream stuff, we did like a holiday record that will be. We didn't have time to put out the actual record this year, so it'll come out next year. We hope, but we were able to do like a really fun Christmas special, and just trying to be creative and keep it relevant still, because that's kind of like how it has to go for right now. You got to think of stuff to do, and who knows when touring is going to happen again. So. Yeah. Kind of a bummer, but
true story.
Yeah.
It sounds like you're making the best of it though.
Yeah, trying.
Yeah. I think we've only ever played like one show with you guys. And I think it was in Japan in like 2008, maybe.
Oh man,
or 10.
Okay,
it's been so long ago that I don't remember the year of it. But I know you guys have been there a few times.
Yeah,
for sure. Do you have any fond memories of the Punk Spring festivals?
Oh yeah. I love. First of all, like it's one of my favorite places to go. I mean, I'm not alone saying. Yes. I'm not alone in saying that, right?
Yes.
It's just culturally, the people, like everything, the food. I mean, it's just so awesome. And it's such it's like stimulation overload there, like it's like, especially if you've never been there before.
Yeah.
And then my wife actually lived there for a couple of years teaching English. So we've gone back even without the band and stayed there. Like I went there with my family, with the kids and my wife a couple of years ago, and we stayed for the summer.
My God, how fun.
Yeah. And it was mostly in Hiroshima where she lived. So we were there mostly.
Yeah.
And I love it. It's beautiful. The people are beautiful. Like it's just, and she has like a Japanese family there. So we hung out with them a lot, and it's just the communicating between each other is like, they're not like a typical Japanese family. Like they love like to party, and the communication is like, we have to use our phones to like communicate, but there's so much laughter.
Yes.
And like, it's just, you're communicating without communicating in a way. So it's really good. But yeah, I would love to get back there at some point.
Do you feel like that's one of those places where you could do like a life swap? If you were like, I've got to start over tomorrow, we could do it there.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I just love like their whole way of even like when we were there, seeing my kids' ages, and they're just taking the train alone, because Hiroshima has like a trolley car system above ground. So like kids were just getting on, going to school, getting off, going to corner market, getting their after school snack, and just like walking around by themselves. And it's so safe, and I don't know, there's something about that just is like freeing or something. I don't know.
Yeah, it's super cool. We loved all of our time there. We always come back with so many stories of us not understanding the culture and just like messing things up for them. But yeah, it's brilliant. It's so fun. I always tell people that I compare it to like if you were to step off of a plane and like onto the set of Blade Runner, that's kind of what it feels like.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah. Well, absolutely.
I wanted to ask you some creative questions.
Okay.
Because you have like you have like such a massive body of work that you've accumulated over the course of your career. And I'm really interested in your creative process. Like, what does songwriting look like for you personally and like within the band dynamic?
It's interesting because I'm the type of person that I need to be around creative people in order to be like inspired.
Yeah.
So I have a hard time just having it come out on my own,
Yeah.
So I need to be around inspiring people.
You're talking about how you feel like you kind of come alive in a situation where people are being creative and sort of unlocking that for you.
Yeah. So like for me, like my best comes out when I'm with the guys. Like when I'm home, like band guy just turns off for whatever reason. And I don't know why, I don't know why that is. Like I just my mind starts focusing on other things that I'm into, as opposed to like band stuff. And, and there's a couple guys in my band that they're just like living it every day, like thinking about it every day. And I love that. And if I don't think our band would be where it is if it wasn't like that. But for me personally, like I need to like kind of turn it off when I'm home and like do other stuff. So when I'm with the guys though, it's like, it's a great dynamic. Like we're constantly riffing off each other, like, and I do miss that. So yeah, it's kind of like how it is for me, I guess.
I mean, I feel kind of jealous of you and what seemed like your really awesome boundaries to be able to like come home and like turn it off. Cause I'm definitely one of those people that's like always thinking about songs, always thinking about production to some degree, always thinking about like what's next or what's a cool idea that we can turn into something, sort of a thing. Do you feel it? Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say, I feel like if you want to be a band that's going to do things and be around and be relevant, like you need somebody in the band to do that. Yeah. And I'm just, that's just like, to be perfectly like out and straight about it. Like that's not me. Like that's not the type of person I am.
Yeah. So yeah.
I leave that for other people in my band.
Yeah, for sure. So you kind of have this really interesting attitude where it sort of seems like you are kind of holding the band with an open hand. Yeah. Like you're not finding too much of your, maybe I'm projecting, but maybe you're not finding like your entire identity in it, that like, that you're willing to kind of just be involved when you're involved and also have an entirely different life outside of it.
Well, that's taken me a lot of self-work. Like I wasn't like that at first because before like my whole identity was the band, and that's all, it's all I did and it's all I was doing. And as I got older and started like, actually like thinking about like where I am in my life and who am I and like that kind of stuff. Like, everybody's always asking the who am I question, and like, I think therapy is really helpful.
Hell yes, it is.
So, and ever since like I've started doing, that, and I've been, seeing a therapist for several years, and that's very helpful. I think it's taken a lot of self-work to like really realize that, because for a long time I was like, I want to be more than just that guy in the band, you know what I mean? And so like, for not just to like, I need something, I don't want to be just a band guy. It's like, dude, shut up. Like you're in a popular band, like you have nothing to complain about. But it's like more for like, I don't know. I think when I started to have a family and kids and stuff, like, I don't know. I think it was just, and for myself too, like, I don't know. I just wanted to start like thinking about that more or something.
Dude, I absolutely love this because I feel like people don't talk about this side of it enough, and I feel really grateful for your candor about it. What did some of that like self work look like for you? Like, were there any cool like revelations in therapy that you kind of had some aha moments or light bulb moments where you're like, oh shit, this is a game changer? Yeah,
to be able to just speak freely to someone that can like, that's just listening and not judging, like that's very helpful.
Yeah.
And that's such like a basic answer, but it really was like helpful for me.
It's a basic like human need. Yeah.
Yeah. And also too, like I give a lot of credit to my wife too. Like she is a very much the type of person to like soul search and self search and like, and reflectiveness and meditation. And like, she's all into that stuff. Yeah. And before I knew her, I was like, fuck that shit. Like, all that like woo woo stuff, but now I'm like, I'm kind of into it.
Yeah. You and me both, dude. I feel like after I turned 30, all of a sudden, like I found myself running to the woo woo, like because I feel like it helped. Like, and therapy was a big part of that too. Yeah. And I feel like the woo woo was just kind of a way of sort of amplifying the things I was learning in therapy. Totally. I know we're making general assumptions about woo woo, but
yeah, I know. Nothing wrong with it.
Yeah,
you just got to. There's like a fine balance. There's like a balance,
Yeah.
With when it comes to that stuff. But also too, like there's, I don't know. Have you heard of the Enneagram before?
Of course.
I'm going to get all weird now.
Do it. Get as weird as you need to be.
Yeah. So like my, again, wife was super into it, got me into it. And now I kind of, when we talk and we were with friends and stuff, we're like, oh, that's why he's like that, because he's a 3. Or like, we're always like, you're not supposed to number people, but
right.
And if people don't understand if people don't know what the Enneagram is, it's basically like, it's sort of like an elevated, deep within sort of personality type.
Like a Myers-Briggs kind of thing, but like a little more soft and kind and insightful.
And ancient.
Yes.
Almost like ancient. Yeah. And so it's super interesting. And yeah, so I don't want to get too much into it because, but that's basically, and once I like kind of like not figured it out, but that was really helpful for me actually getting into that and knowing, like reading through the numbers and seeing what my like quote unquote number is. They say when you're reading through and you're trying to like figure it out, and if you're reading a certain number and you kind of like start to like
think about things and you start to cringe a little bit, then that's probably pretty accurate what your number is.
Oh yeah.
That number is.
Yeah.
So when I read this, my number is a 9. And when I started reading that stuff, I was like, oh yeah, this makes a lot of sense. That's why I do weird shit like that. Okay. That's why I don't, whatever.
Yeah.
So.
I think the Enneagram is like such an amazing tool just for introspection, like in giving you a way to sort of define your neuroses.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And kind of be like, oh, this is what that is. I don't have to like wonder what's happening. It kind of like gives you a cool starting point for self-reflection. And I absolutely love that. But I know you don't like to be judged or to feel like you're just like a number, a 9 walking around. But yeah, so what were the things about 9s that you feel like you most resonated with, or that might have been the most helpful for you?
I think the fact of like for 9s, so there's like where a 9 goes in health and where a 9 goes in unhealthy ways, right?
Yeah.
And for me, the unhealthy was like when things were getting too overwhelming, like something that can take 15 minutes to finish would take me like a week, and like not realizing it then, but when you actually finally get to do it and you're like, that only took 15 minutes and I took a week to do that. Like, why? But what really was like sort of interesting for me was like when things get stressful or too much, like I tend to go to like sort of not doing anything.
Yeah.
And that was, to know that about myself, like was really helpful. And that's like a big part. That's like one of the unhealthy ways of a 9 is like when things get too stressful or too much for them, they kind of like, cool, bro. Yeah. Yeah. 25 miles an hour street. You're so cool.
I thought we only had that in the South, but apparently it's worldwide.
They love it. How do they not know they're not like a stereotype? How do they not know?
Cognitive bias.
Anyway, yeah. Going back to that, that was a really helpful insight for me because I totally do that. When things get stressful, I kind of like just put everything off.
Yeah.
And not get things done or whatever. So that was the biggest thing for me.
Yeah. Dude, I can totally relate to that. I can tell if I'm not in a good headspace, if I know I have things that I just need to get done. And for some reason, like I sit down and it really does feel like everything turns into a mountain for some reason. And I think it's because you're like fighting all of this like energy, like to just try to get to a good place. So you're just trying to get back to a place where like, okay, I can be functional. I don't feel absolutely like bombarded thoughts and concerns and worries and like overthinking and all of that bullshit. Yeah. But it's a process. Like it sounds like you've done a lot of self-reflection and work to kind of get to a place where do you feel healthier now? Do you feel like you're on a positive trajectory?
Yeah, mentally for sure. Physically, not so much because I'm COVID pounds,
Wear them proud.
I have not been doing much of anything. But I mean, I feel like I'm still trying to. I still always want to get better, and still try and make healthy relationships and do and have a healthy state of mind. So I'm constantly, trying to achieve that.
Yeah.
And it could take me my whole life, but at least I feel like I'm getting somewhere,
Yeah. I love that. I'm very happy for you. Do you feel like you've watched your friends in the band kind of take similar trajectories? Do you feel like you're all kind of on this journey together, or is everybody kind of doing their own thing?
Yeah, no, I feel like we are, but in doing it in their own way.
Yeah.
Ian is a great example. My bass player, who was, very unhealthy, was had drug addictions, different things like that. He totally like 180'd. Like he said, and he's like, it was amazing because he's not a very like cold turkey kind of person.
Yeah.
He's very OCD about things, which I think is helpful in this situation. But he was just like, you know what, I'm kind of done with this. Like, I want to feel better. I want to look better. And he just did it.
Yeah.
And I think it's really commendable. Like, I wish I could be like that. I'm starting my diet tomorrow, and then I do it for a day, and then he was like the guy, like literally, like the OCD. I think really helps with that kind of thing because he like rides 10 miles a day on his bicycle and like makes sure he eats the same things every day. Where to me, it's like I need some variety in my life, but for him, he's like, I need my protein powder and my rice cake with bananas or whatever. It's the same thing every day.
So, oh my gosh. That's awesome. Do you feel like you can tell a difference when everybody's kind of working on themselves within the band dynamic? Do you feel like it kind of starts to show if somebody feels unhealthy?
Yeah, I think it. We're all pretty transparent with each other.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's why I think that's a reason why we've been in a band for as long as we have. I mean, everyone's kind of just like calls you out on your bullshit, and it might hurt at the time, but then you realize like, yeah, maybe I was not doing that great of a whatever, you know?
Yeah. Of course. Man, I love that. I would love to, I'd love to take you to a happy memory. Do you feel like there's an experience that like sticks out for you, like a specific studio experience where you might be working on a specific record in your career where you just kind of feel like, oh yeah, there was a lot of like light in that experience?
Probably when we were doing, I got to think about it. I think the biggest one for me, so 2000, like right before like the self-titled came out.
Okay.
We were recording that, and we were still living in South Florida, and we were still all like living at home with our parents.
Yeah.
And here we are going to record like a major label album, and we're like for us, it didn't really. I mean, it was exciting, but for us, we were so used to just like playing our little dives in South Florida and Miami, and like And here we are going into this like fancy studio, which, you know, was already crazy in itself. And then having, you know, Chad pick me up from my mom's house to drive me to the studio in Miami.
I love it.
And then we'd go and we'd just sit at the studio all day. Even if we didn't have to be there, we would just sit there. First time working with Neil Avron. So that, you know, this big time producer, you know, at the time, which he actually really wasn't at the time. He had just done like a Wallflowers record, I think. And that was pretty much like his thing. And that Everclear record was like the two, you know, our friends coming to visit all day long and sitting in the lounge and like playing Xbox and making smoothies. Like the fridge was always filled with stuff.
Of course.
For some reason, smoothies is like what comes to memory because I was always making them for everybody. I remember like RX Bandits were in town and in Florida playing a show, and they came to do some like gang vocals and like, you know, they're just like smoking weed in the lounge like of the studio. And like, you know, it was like, those were fun memories. And then like I'd go home to my mom's at like, you know, 1 a.m. and then start over the next day. It's just so weird. I'd go home and take out the trash. And then like I'd go back to the studio to record a record for MCA Records. You know, it's just so weird, or Geffen or whatever it was. And so weird, you know, so weird. Anyway.
Man, I love that. It sounds like you have a lot of really fun memories tied up into that. Do you feel like that those first like studio experiences where you because I feel like a lot of bands have that where they kind of walk into a studio and it's like, oh shit, it's the big leagues. Like, I don't know what any of this stuff does. But people are paying money for us to be here, and you're just kind of riding the wave in that moment. Do you feel like there was something empowering that you took from those initial experiences, like those first experiences that kind of made you feel like you belonged for the rest of the time? Or?
No, not at first. I think not at first. It was just like, this is fun. Hey, Sean, come over, like, you know, calling my friends, come and hang out. Like,
right.
That's kind of what it was. And then, you know, the final product, you're like, holy crap, like, this is like good. Like, what?
Yeah.
And then everything after that was sort of, you know, just everything happened so not fast. I wouldn't say fast, but it feels like it happened quickly, you know?
Yeah.
And then it became routine, you know, and then you're like, all right, this is cool, you know, whatever. Third record with Neil, cool, you know, or whatever. Like,
right.
It just seemed like it was never going to stop, you know?
Yeah.
And then, of course, you know, with any band that's been around a long time, there's just ups and downs. So,
yeah, of course. Absolutely. I would love to, if you have the emotional bandwidth for it, I'd love to hear about what you would consider to be maybe the worst moment in your band. Like if New Found Glory were like were a movie, what would be the dark night of the soul kind of moment for it?
Oh man, I don't know. It's hard to think about like that because there's just so much that's, you know, the band's been around for so long and I can't pinpoint one specific thing. I mean, obviously we lost a member and that was a rough time, but I'd rather not talk about him.
Yeah.
But I would probably have to say, it's weird. I can't really think of a really dark, like terrible time. I mean, for me personally, there have been things during the life of the band where things shitty happened personally, but the band as a whole, I don't know. I mean, I feel like that the band has always been the place where I can go to like really forget about all the crappy stuff that happens.
Yes.
But there's been, there's been stuff like, putting out a record and then all of a sudden the whole team from the label gets fired because they're downsizing.
Oh my God. I feel like that happens to every single person in the music industry.
Yeah,
Holy shit.
Yeah. Every record, like, you're like, yes, like this is going to be the one, like, to take us over the top. And then, the president got fired. The guy that signed you.
Yeah.
Or like, just stuff like that. I feel like that happened literally every single record.
Oh my God.
But luckily, the band kind of did the DIY thing, and we kind of have always been a band to do things on our own. And so that's obviously, it doesn't affect us too much, but at the same time, it's like, man, now we got to do stuff ourselves again. Darn it. Damn it. We had all these people doing it for us. Like, it's just one more thing to think about instead of just playing shows,
Yeah. No, I totally feel that. I think it's interesting because I think one of the benefits, or it would seem like one of the things to kind of take joy in, is the fact that because you did start out so young, you didn't become a doctor or a lawyer, but you also have like multiple generations of kids that like grew up on you having fun. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like on you following your dream, and being a part of this, like of the subculture, of the music genre, of like everything that was kind of happening then. How does that sit in your mind when you're just kind of by yourself thinking about it? Or do you not really think about it at all?
Oh, I think about it.
Yeah.
I think about it for sure. I think it's really, it's definitely a cool thing to be super basic. It's cool.
To be super basic.
Yeah. To be super basic. But it's true. I never thought in a million years, like being in the band that I'm in would, we'd still be doing what we're doing. And so many people would, so many people that come up to us at shows and on tour, like, I grew up on you guys, and here, this is my 10-year-old. Now he loves you guys. Like, I never thought in a million. It's so weird. Like, I never thought in a million years that would be the legacy of my band. And it's true. Like, it's weird to think about. And also, by the way, thank you for making me, thank you for doing this with me and reminding me that I'm still in a band, because I've been just like home doing nothing for so long that, I am. People do like me still.
Yes, I think that's the biggest understatement of the podcast, pun intended. But yeah, that's awesome. I think I feel like I could do this with you for like hours. But I know we're like on a little bit of a time crunch. I would love to know if you're willing to talk about this, or if it's not like too crazy of a thing. One of the things we talk about on the podcast a lot are like people's experiences with religion growing up, because a lot of the bands like where we came from like grew up with some really toxic religious ideologies, and we started to see those because we were thrown into this specific subsect of the music industry. Like the first record label that we got signed to was a Christian record label. And we didn't understand a lot about that industry or how it worked. And we were really fortunate to be able to kind of move on to Sony after all of that stuff. It was really weird. And like the more that we look back on it, it was kind of fucked up. And I always am interested in like, did you have any of those experiences with religion growing up, or was it just a periphery thing? Yeah,
it was definitely a periphery thing. I mean, I was like Jewish, like
Jewish. That's it.
Jew, like -ish.
Right.
And we were like Jewish on the holidays kind of thing. So I never really had I have so many friends that have that like emotional baggage from growing up in a like evangelical sort of, religion, and have, gotten through that and like have found their way in like what they want to like teach their kids and for themselves and stuff. And my family, we do go to church, but I don't even think like Christians would call it a church, because it's, so far left, like it's so far like so lib that it's like, they kind of like, and it's more about self-growth than anything. Which I love. And it's comfortable for me because I never really knew much about Christianity or anything like that growing up. But man, I like, luckily I don't have that sort of baggage or like weird sort of feelings about it. So I'm kind of able to be open more to a lot of things.
Yeah. I love that. Do you find it enriching in your life to kind of to be a part of communities like that?
Oh yeah, especially when you're all sort of on the same, it's like same core values of stuff, and like can be able to speak freely on things that you like believe and people get it, and you don't feel judgment. It's really nice.
What's the craziest thought that you have about the meaning and purpose of existence? When you're kind of just like by yourself and thinking like, what the fuck is going on here? Like, what are the ideas that you gravitate? Do you gravitate towards ideas like God, or do you gravitate more towards like, I don't know, or?
Yeah, I gravitate. It depends on the day, I guess.
Yeah.
Because some days I'm like, what is happening? Like, what is the point? Like, why, what is there after you die? Like, what is the point? Like, what is the point of all this then if you die and there's nothing? Like, what's the point of making memories? Like, what's the point of having relationships? Like, is it just to get you through life to end up being dead? Or is it like, is there something more? Like what is it? So like, I think about that a lot.
Yeah.
But I'm always kind of like, what the hell's going on, man? This is so weird. Like, why is Green Day on my bus right now? Like, why am I in Brazil and there's like people chasing our van? Like, what? Like, what? Like.
Yeah. I love that. When do you feel like you're the happiest? Like at the happiest, most joyful moments in your life, what do your surroundings look like?
Probably when my wife and I are like spending alone time drinking coffee on the porch.
Yeah.
I love that. I love happiest is like hanging out with good friends. Happiest is being on stage for an hour and a half.
Yeah.
The behind the scenes stuff is always like what's hard, but that it's all for that hour and a half or 2 hours that you're on stage, I would say like that's like the biggest things for me.
Yeah.
I would say my children, but they're really hard. I love them. I love them to death, but they're really challenging. So
do you feel like your kids have taught you anything about yourself or your limitations?
Oh, limitations 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm still trying to figure it out. Like I know that I've made mistakes with them, and so I'm constantly still trying to figure it out. But going back to my therapist again, like
yes,
she makes me feel better about it because she says, do you love your children? Yes. Do they have food? Yes. Do they have shelter? Yes. So that's if they have those things, then you're doing fine.
Yeah.
Like in the short way of answering that.
Yeah.
But,
yeah.
And I do like, I do feel proud when they like accomplish something. Like my 10-year-old, he's very challenging, has neurological things going on. And but I feel proud like when we're at the skate park, for example.
Yeah.
And he drops in and he like can like go up and down the ramps and he's just like doing it on his own and he's like learning on his own and it's really cool to see. It's really cool to see,
Yeah.
And he's like all cool. He's got super long hair and he's wearing like his like his like Santa Cruz skateboards t-shirt and
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird because I feel like he'll be growing up in a different musical landscape than the one, which is true of like anybody. I feel like things just change, like cultures change, music changes. But I know that you guys kind of started out in the drive-through era. And I always find those kinds of things interesting because I feel like, at least from my perspective, there seem to be these really cool musical communities around specific labels.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's because I'm old and like totally out of fucking touch, but I feel like I don't witness that as much. Like everything feels a little more decentralized. Like it's just whatever's popping up in the feed. And I don't know, I don't see like people younger than me like being fans of labels. They're kind of more just fans of individual bands, and that sense of community, I feel like either I don't see it or I'm not aware of it. I don't want to go so far as to say it doesn't exist, but it definitely doesn't feel as like prominent. And I didn't know if maybe you had any thoughts about that or if you experienced that yourself.
Yeah, it's interesting because I'm, so the band has put the last few records out on Hopeless, right? And I feel it has the same sort of, I don't know if that's because I'm in the band or whatever, but I do have a sense of that same sort of like community, like where people love bands that aren't hopeless,
Yeah.
And we're part of like this like cool thing. But then again, I don't know. I haven't really locked in with that as much. Or paid attention as much. Cause my musical preferences are like far beyond what like the music actually play. So I'm like in my own world when it comes to stuff. But actually, you know, I take that back because I can say for me, like there are plenty of bands that I like that are on the same, like they come from the same label, you know?
Yeah.
So I don't know. Maybe it is just an age thing.
No, that's totally cool. Yeah, I love your perspective on that. I'm really interested to know if you weren't in a band and you weren't tattooing and like everything that you had about yourself, you know, like this entire, like you have a lifetime of like building the Jordan from New Found Glory thing. But you've also like talked about like not wanting that to be all you are. And so if you had the opportunity to kind of start over tomorrow and you knew you could wipe all of that clean, that you would lose all the good stuff too, you know, but you had to figure out like, well, what am I doing now? Yeah. What would that be?
Ooh, it's hard because a lot of the things I have are because of the band and a lot of the opportunities I've had, but that's a good one. I guess I think, right now I'm doing like working on doing like voiceover stuff, like voiceover acting.
Yeah.
And so I think that I would, you know, looking back, I wish I would have started it like a long time ago, but I'm just now starting it. Mm-hmm. But I think that's where I would be. I would either be doing that or like still in, you know, I was in marching band all through middle school and high school. So I might be like in some sort of orchestra or something. I don't know. Like getting my master's in like choir directing or something. Who knows? Like,
Wow. That's awesome.
Although I'm not that smart to get a master's degree, but hey.
Oh, I wouldn't say that. I know a few people that have master's degrees, and I'm like, well, that's encouraging. Oh my gosh,
that's awesome.
Well, dude, I would really love to know, like, for everybody that's growing up on your tunes now, and even kind of going back and like rediscovering earlier like New Found Glory discography. Like, do you have any words of like affirmation, clarity, or wisdom for guys that are taking notes from you and that feel like, I want to do what Jordan's doing. I want to do what New Found Glory is doing. I feel super inspired by this style, this music, by the fact that there are still bands that can still exist, you know, after the 5-year spike and like all of that happens for everybody. Like, I would love to know what that would be.
Yeah, I think for starters is like, don't listen to what other people might have to say about what you're doing. I mean, take everything with a grain of salt, you know, and if it feels right and it feels good to you, then that's what you should be doing. I know that's very general, but I really do feel like that's part of it. But also, I think the biggest part is just don't be a dick. Like, don't expect things. Like, there's so many times where I'll play a festival or I'll play a show or you know, there's a new band that's like gaining popularity and they're just assholes. And it's like, why can't you just be a normal person? Like, okay, like people like your band today, right? But they might not in a couple of years from now. So like, don't be an asshole to people. Like, just be cool. Like that's my favorite thing about being in a band is like, and that's just be my personality. But I love hanging out and meeting people and like, you know, hanging out with the other bands, the opening bands that are on the tour and like that part of it is like so fun for me. And there's been so many bands where you're like, are you serious? Like why? Like you're just a person. Like you're just, you are, I don't know. So I think like, just don't be a dick. Like that's a big thing. I feel.
Like it's so much more fun without the ego trip.
Totally.
Like it's not serving anybody.
And exactly. And you know who solidified that and affirmed that for me were the Green Day dudes. Like they're one of the biggest bands in like our world, you know, I guess, right? And still to this day. And seeing how, you know, we did that tour. We did 2 tours with them, like the US American Idiot and the UK Europe one, like a month or so after. Yeah. And seeing the progression of like when the record came out at the beginning of the tour, we're in like Dallas and it was an arena, but it wasn't like sold out. Yeah. But they still put on an amazing show. And then as the record got bigger and bigger that year, like seeing the crowds go from like, you know, 70% to just fully like oversold in these arenas and amphitheaters and stuff. And then just the genuine excitement about it was really cool to see. And then not only that, but also the fact that like they were the ones to come and like break the ice, like to like hang out with the little band, you know, like they knocked after the first show, they knocked on our bus door and like said, "Hey, what's up?" And then they came in and like Trey Cool had a bottle of tequila and
I love it.
Billy Joe comes on and he's like, "Hey, you mind if I smoke a cigarette?" And we're like, "Yeah, sure." And we don't like do smoking on the bus or anything.
Right.
And so like just seeing them and like and knowing that they love learning about new music and bringing out younger bands and like they're cool to hang. They just want to hang out, and I don't know, that just like really solidified it for me. It's like, yeah, like that's how it needs to be.
Yeah,
like you can be a huge band and not be a shit bag. So.
I love that. I love that so much.
Yeah.
Dude, thank you so much for spending time with me and coming on doing the podcast.
No problem.
We'll throw links to whatever the latest and greatest from NFG is into the show notes. Cool. Yeah, and it's absolutely been lovely. You are such a lovely and pleasant person. And I hope we get the opportunity to hang out in person sometime over, I don't know, when all the COVID shit figures itself out.
Are you in California?
I'm not. I'm actually in Asheville, North Carolina.
Oh, cool. We have friends there. Good friends there.
Yeah. Awesome.
Good spot.
Yeah.
It's fun there.
It's pretty great. Drinks on me if you ever come into town.
Yeah.
It'll be a good time.
You got some good breweries there too. So.
Oh my God. Yeah. Every 10 feet.
Yeah.
So thank you for your time. And
man.
Hopefully we'll get to do this again at some point.
Yeah, I'm down.
Awesome.
For sure.
Eleventy Life is a production of Rock